And the Shalom here goes into the deep um, meaning of peace as a process, as a dynamism. There's a movement. Peace allows um, for the spigots to open, for the waters of aliveness and wellness and godliness to to flow. So the word shalom, what does it mean? Most people, when asked, will say peace, hello, and goodbye. And that is indeed true. Literally, the word shalom is used in all those in those three ways. And the Slonomer here in the context of Parshat Korach goes into real deep analysis of the word shalom on much deeper levels, where it's not so much about the definition, the literal definition of the word shalom, but more of the function of the process of shalom, of peace. And we discussed this in the previous lesson. So the slogan here is building and building and building. And let's just jump right in. It's a bit of an abstraction, and I'm aware of that. Like a friend of mine once says, when I study Torah, in the end, so the last consideration, the punchline should always be, how does that make me a better person? In other words, how do we bring this down to earth? How do we make this a valuable lesson that we can apply in our lives? And sometimes getting into Torah, especially in the more kind of lofty levels of it, takes us to abstractions. And I'm aware that this is sort of like a little bit of a hair-splitting abstraction of the word shalom. Who cares? Well, I think we should care. I care. Because it is, I think it directs us in a trajectory of deepening spirituality. In other words, next time you say Shabbat Shalom, next time you sing Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hasharet, Malachei Elyon, Melech Malchei Amlachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Shalom Aleichem, Malachei Hashalom, angels of peace. And when we talk about peace in the context of conflict, politics, it's good to have that kind of deeper rooting of the word shalom in the greater kind of cosmology of our spiritual evolution. So that way I think it's practical. So the Zohar said the whole discussion, and I mentioned that in the last lesson, but I want to remind us, is that Ita B'Zohar HaKadosh, it's written in the Zohar, Korach azil b'machloket. Korach, in our parsha, became involved with the dispute. Machloket plugta de shalom. It's a dispute that is disrupting shalom, peace. Uman diflig al shalom, palig al shma kadisha. And a person who is disrupting shalom, peace, is disrupting the name of the Holy One. Begin Dishma Kadisha Shalom Ikri, because the name of the Holy One is called Shalom. And he continues to elaborate on this verse from the Zohar. So we understand what is the connection between Shalom and God's name. What is God called Shalom? Why is it such a terrible offense? Obviously, on its face, it seems trivial, because obviously, if Korach is disputing Moses and Aaron, obviously he's disrupting Shalom. He's disrupting peace. Okay, I mean, it's happened. So let's understand Shalom a little deeper. ויש לומר שזו המשמעות של דרגת שלום. And we can say that here's the meaning of the level of Shalom. We're talking about a level. שהיא דרגת הממוצע בין המאציל והנאצל. This is the level of interface, ממוצע, between the giver and the receiver of spiritual nourishment. And the words ma'atzil and ne'etzal are in the context, these are Kabbalistic terms, and they're in the context of the flow from the giver, from the higher rung of nourishment, spiritual nourishment. We call that Shefa. This is plugging into, reconnecting with the discussion in the last lesson, to the ne'etzal, to the one who's receiving this spiritual flow. And we talked in the last lesson about how all of life is really, it works in that manner. It's a flow from the giver to the receiver. Everything is flowing. There's always a giver. There's always a receiver. This is the constant dynamism, the constant state of life as we experience it as humans. שעל ידו יורד השפע לנאצל ויש שלום בין המשפיע למקבל. And through this there is a nourishment, Shefa, that goes to the receiver. And there is shalom, peace, between the giver and the receiver. וכמו שכתב בהקדמת ספר הקדוש תולדות יעקב יוסף, as it is written in the introduction to the holy book, The Creations of Yaakov Yosef. It's a Hasidic text, a very important one, because Yosef of Polonoi, who is the author of the book, was one of the closest students to the Baal Shem Tov, so a lot of it are the teaching of the holy Baal Shem Tov. שהוא כמו איש המתווך שלום בין בית הפכים, which is like a person who is a mediator of peace between two opposites through an interface. In other words, that person is the interface. ומטעם זה נקראת מידת יסוד בשם שלום. And that is why the Sephira of Yesod, which is the 9th Sephira in the order of the 10 Sephirot, and it's the one before Malchut, which is a sphere of manifestation. You could say that life as we know it in the physical realm is that Sephira, where everything manifests as we have it. So the Sephira preceding that is called Yesod, and he tells us that's why Yesod is also called Shalom, because it is that interface between the 9 Sephirot, the whole process, evolutionary process in creation, and it is the intermediary or the channel that brings that whole process into manifestation, into Malchut. שעל ידה ירידת השפע מהמשפיע למקבל. So through Yesod there is that flow from the giver to the receiver. וזה עניין הדברים שאיקו שלום. And this is what it means that God is named peace. שהם ממוצע בין הקדוש ברוך הוא וישראל. That is the word shalom, or the state of shalom, the concept of shalom is the interface between the Holy One, blessed be, and Israel. דהיינו שהם מקיימים את הקשר בין הבורא יתברך לבריאה ולישראל, because they establish the link between the Creator and the creation and to Israel. וזהו עניין שמא דקודשא בריך הוא דאיקרא שלום. And that's what it means that God's name is Shalom. ששמא דקודשא בריך הוא בחינת ממוצע, שעל ידו הקשר בין הקדוש ברוך הוא לבריאה ולישראל. It's beautiful, beautiful. Let me translate first. That Shema Dekudsha Brichu, the name of the Holy One, blessed be, is as if the interface between the Holy One, blessed be, and creation and Israel, and is called Shalom. So let's get that. This is really important to understand the conversation between a human and everything, the Holy One. So I am never going to, probably at death, but as long as I'm alive, I'm never going to link to God, link to the Holy One, link to eternity. Because by definition we can't. Our being as an entity, both physical and spiritual, is too limited to hold the voltage of eternity. But there is an interface, there is a way to link, and the link is the name of the Holy One, or the myriad of names of the Holy One. So get this, the language is the interface. The best I can actually meet, the handshake I can have, is not with God, as eternity, but with God's name. It's a very deep concept, and it's a good one to meditate on. It really opens worlds. And you know, this is hence prayer, hence chanting, hence meditating on certain words, and hence sacred names of God, which are those portals of interface. And what he's telling us here, that Shalom, the word Shalom, as God's name, is one of those portals. וזהו עניין שלמה פעילה היא, שאמנם לא שייך בעולמות העליונים מחלוקת והפך השלום. And this answers the dilemma, the question that the Solomon has brought in previously, is what does it mean to have peace on high? Oseh shalom bimromav, the one who makes peace in heaven. There is no conflict in heaven. Conflict by definition is the domain of humanity, of the difficult physical universe we're in. Everything is in tension, everything is in conflict. It's a dog-eat-dog world. Out in nature, in human society, between spouses, relationships, everything. There's always a tension. So shalom, peace, is very relevant to our experience. But up in the heavens, there is no conflicts in the heavens, we're told. So why the one who makes peace in the heaven? It's not relevant to the heaven, peacemaking. אלא עניין השלום שמור קיום הקשר בכל השתלשלות האורות והמדרגות מעולם לעולם. In the heavens, shalom, it has nothing to do with conflict. It has to do with interface between the many rungs, the many levels, from eternity to temporality, from the Godhead to physicality. And in Kabbalah, we talk about many levels as reality becomes more and more and more dense. This is the hierarchy of the angels, the different worlds. The details of that are a topic for another lessons or other lessons. But the principle here is that every higher level is a giver to the rung below it. And the spiritual energy flows through this very, very intricate and long process, this very chain of events, you can say. And Shalom is the interface. It's the touching, the linking point between the level above and the level below, as it were. That's Shalom. So the one who makes Shalom in his heavens is the one who links, who allows the spiritual flow to descend and descend and descend and descend from infinity to materiality, to finity, to the world of finality. וזהו שלום הדעילאי כאשר יש הממוצע על ידו ירד השפע מהמאציל ברוך הוא לנעשה בכל העולמות העליונים. It's exactly what I just explained. וזהו גם כן עניין שבת, דהיו שלמה דעילאי ותתאי, כמו שנאמר על השבת, ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם. And here he's pointing out that Shabbat is also an interface. So just like Shalom is an interface between the spiritual and the material, so is Shabbat. Shabbat, the practices of Shabbat, the time of Shabbat, the intentionality of Shabbat is another portal where there's a spiritual flow, a life-giving flow from the higher realms down to our realm. And that's apropos why on Shabbat we say Shabbat Shalom. Right? So it is Shabbat of interface. This is the time to interface with the spiritual reality. And that's why we also sing the song Shalom Aleichem Malachei Shalom. Hello to you, or peace upon you, angels of peace, angels of Shalom. Again, we're singing about the angels on Shabbat that are there to help us interface. Shalom is interface. The Torah, so God is called Shalom, Shabbat is called Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, and then the Torah is also called Shalom. Here, according to the Slonimer, Uma tam gam haTorah nikrat Shalom, and what is the reason of the Torah being called Shalom? Ki haTorah kedusha gam ken memutza ben HaKadosh Baruch Hu Yisrael, because the Holy Torah is also an interface between the Holy One, blessed be, and Israel. A lot of spiritual energy comes through the Torah, and hence Torah study is such a deep and critical spiritual practice in Jewish spirituality. What a deep teaching. One little word, Shalom. And you know, it's intuitive. I'm thinking about the many different ways or other contexts in which peace looms large as a spiritual principle. For instance, in Buddhism, often I hear Buddhist teachings talking about the goal of the meditation practice is inner peace. There you have it. I think they're tricking us. So this inner peace that the Buddhists want us to attain is really just a portal, just a point of interface with the oneness from where we come. And what about Christianity and Islam when they talk about peace as a virtue, right? Um, when we learn from the Sufis that what God wants is peace, what Islam is teaching is the teachings of Islam are the teachings of peace, of harmony, of getting along. Why get along? I mean, life is all about tension and conflict. Because getting along, attaining that level, is a portal to the flow from above to below. And so on and so forth. I'm not an expert on the teachings of many other traditions, but my hunch is that peace is core to all traditions. And the Sotomer here goes into the deep meaning of peace as a process, as a dynamism. There's a movement. Peace allows for the spigots to open, for the waters of aliveness and wellness and godliness to flow, so we can be in life's fullness, right? And Korach doesn't get that. Korach wants to be in the fight. It's a very important message to not only to those of us who are spiritual seekers, but those of us who are social justice activists. Yes, we need to fight for justice, but we also need to lay down our sword and shield right by the riverside. Because if we don't learn how to also lay down the sword and shield, how to go to the place of peace, of shalom, our social activism is not going to work. The depth of shalom, of Shabbat shalom, of the Torah of shalom, is to integrate a mindfulness of interfacing, of keeping the channel open, keeping the radio tuned in to the divine wavelength, so we then don't get caught up in the narrowness, the limitations of our own, ordinary consciousness mind. If that makes sense. And that is where Korach failed. Korach was narrow-minded. You and I, we very easily default to narrow-mindedness. Shalom is an awareness of the broad-mindedness that allows the flow of nourishment, of truth, of divinity. And then true peace comes. With that, let me wish all of us a wonderful day. This is Rosh Chodesh Tammuz, the beginning of a month of challenge in our calendar. And, we are contending here with the heat of summer, with the beginning of the countdown to Rosh Hashanah, to the end of the year, the beginning of a new year. And let us bring shalom into all that.